guys, I'm here at GenCon 50 with David Reid from MetaArcade, the founder of MetaArcade.
Yes, sir.
And we have Tunnels and Trolls Adventures now available on the App Store. And I'm looking at it right now. You guys are going to look at it with us throughout this video. And we caught up with David last year and kind of saw a prototype of how this was going to go. And now I'm staring at this beautiful screen with an actual finished product going on. And I'm super excited, David.
Awesome, thanks so much.
So hey, it's good to be here with you.
It is awesome to see you again, man, yeah.
So what has happened in the past year from prototype to finished product?
Sure, so the prototype as we showed you guys last year was one adventure, Naked Doom. It was a black and white sort of stark interface, and it was really just a test of like, we think we have an interesting idea here, but does anybody else think this is fun?
Yeah.
And so going to GenCon, then PAX West after that, got a lot of good feedback. We won our first Best in Show award at PAX West.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you kindly. And that gave us sort of the momentum of like, all right, we feel like we're onto something, so let's get serious about it. We then turned the kind of tools we were using to make adventures into a prototype of the Adventure Creator, which we'll show you shortly here. And with the Adventure Creator, we then went to PAX South. So while at PAX South, we had people come into the booth and make adventures with us and tried this out over the course of a 3-day weekend, ended up with 350 rooms, 3 separate adventures we sent out to the beta community. Felt like we were really onto something there. And then we just got serious about, all right, we're going to launch this product. So what you're seeing now, and what people will see if they download on the Apple App Store on Google Play, completely free, is Tunnels and Trolls Adventures, the start of this idea, where we have a tutorial and 5 adventures. Of course, we have Naked Doom, a little remaster and a little tweak for people who maybe remember every little nook and cranny of it.
Sure,
you might find some surprises. We've got Buffalo Castle, which was, in fact, the first solo adventure ever made for any RPG of any kind. It even predates the old Choose Your Own Adventure books.
So cool.
So remastered that. And then an assortment of mini solos that are in there as well, that including the one that we gave away in pen and paper last year, Grimtina's Guard. Now we're putting it into the digital store. And so people will be able to play these with one character or many, and your character goes through persistently, levels up, earns adventure points, earns gold, and takes that with them into the next adventure.
That's so cool. And is the idea to have a Tunnels and Trolls kind of ecosystem and then maybe moving on to other ecosystems, or is there a singular kind of app that will handle all sorts of different kinds of campaigns?
Well, so the short answer on that is Tunnels and Trolls Adventures we expect will be Tunnels and Trolls. And if we end up doing something different, I mean, the core idea here extends to any genre, right? Why not have science fiction and horror and romance and war and whatnot, right? Those are all probably separate apps, right? And they probably all tie into somebody else's license and intellectual property and world, and it wouldn't necessarily make a lot of sense to mingle those assets together.
Sure.
It might not make sense for Borgoth the Dwarf to go through a science fiction adventure, but it might, we're open to it, right? And see how it goes. But the current thinking is that each of these universes, if you will be separate apps on the App Store. And we're starting in fantasy because we're all fantasy guys, and I played Tunnels and Trolls for 40 years. It was the system itself is very lean and scalable, right? It was created in 1975 as a reaction to the complexity of original Dungeons and Dragons, which is very much a tabletop wargamers game.
Yeah.
And when Ken designed Tunnels and Trolls, he aimed it more as being like a Marvel comic feel, right? Fast combat, interesting character dilemmas. The solo adventures gave you a lot more narrative depth. And so starting with that felt like the right approach. At some point, we're going to go into all these other genres, and it'll be exciting to see what people do there.
Well, let's see what we got here then.
Absolutely.
Shall we run through one of these? So first of all, this is the interface, right?
That's correct.
I was telling you earlier, my dad collects pulp magazines, and so I'm used to seeing these big, kind of stunning, sometimes provocative titles just kind of splashed here, and this is like a library, right?
Yes.
So you can choose to do any of these adventures that you want.
Exactly. And so for people who do download off the App Store or Google Play today, they're going to see these first 6 adventures here that we've got. It's an assortment of things. I mean, people will remember Naked Doom from last year, which has been upgraded, improved a bit. Now you got Buffalo Castle from Rick Loomis, which we did put into our beta over in January. But we've also got this assortment of miniature solos that we've started with. So as an example, Seven Eyes is the story of you're an adventurer with great thirst in your throat and money in your pocket, and you walk into a bar. And you can imagine things that happen there. There's a little bit of gambling, there's a little bit of carousing, and there's usually a bar fight at the end. Golden Dust Red Death, written by Michael Stackpole. So Stackpole's name is probably better known as a New York Times best-selling author for Star Wars novels and graphic novels. He wrote the source material that became the foundation of Rogue One. He's worked with Harebrained Schemes on Battletech and Shadowrun more recently, but he got his start with our partners at Flying Buffalo writing Tunnels and Trolls adventures. And Stackpole's adventures are usually set in the city of Gull, which is a port town in Tunnels and Trolls that has a vibrant criminal underbelly. And in Golden Dust Red Death, you set out to, as an unemployed broke adventurer, to smuggle some drugs into the city. We'll show you what the flip side of that sort of thing looks like when we get to the adventure creator. But yeah, we could jump into any of these.
Let's
right
just jump
now.
into one. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody watching, so let's just do something that is kind of light.
So here you go. Here we are in Seven Eyes, and so I'm going to turn up the volume a bit.
So we've got sound effects going on.
Absolutely. So, you can hear the bard strumming his guitar in the corner of the tavern, and this is just a story of, okay, you've walked into a tavern in Troll World, which is maybe a little different than a tavern in any other world, because in the world of Tunnels and Trolls, the monsters kind of won the big war. And so they are running bars and weaponsmiths and everything just like everybody else is. Approach the bar, and now you've got a troll coming up to you. And that's his roar, and he's telling you, you have to peace bind your weapons if you want to bring them in here. And now here's your first decision. Do you want to give up your weapons, or are you going to argue about that?
Well, I mean, I think everybody knows that you got to keep your weapons, right?
Well, why not? And the troll's not terribly happy about that, and he smacks you in the head and does a little bit of constitution damage to you. Nothing too serious.
Yeah, but you get a little talking to.
Yep, you do. And now, the people at the bar are having fun with you here. So, now you take a seat, and I got a little UI thing, but we're going to fix these things. So basically, your bartender is an ogre, and he's offering you the chance to buy wine, beer, or milk.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Wine.
All right, here we go.
We're classy.
All right, so he tells the gremlin down at the end of the bar to run down there and get you a jug of wine, takes 5 gold from you, and you drink your wine. And all things are good until the dude standing next to you at the bar has intentionally knocked you and made you spill your drink.
You feel your elbow jiggled. Nice.
So here we go. We've got a really ugly dude sitting there, half goblin, half human, who's ready to go ahead and give you a talking to. And as we skip through the flavor text now, he gives you this, knock it off or I'll punch you, and now you get to decide. Are you punching him first?
So you punch him first, I can stab him with a dagger, I can try to talk to him. Let's punch him.
Excellent choice. Because now you've started the bar fight.
Nice.
So you punch the guy and he tries to punch you back, and punches go wild, other people get hit, and all of a sudden, everybody's in a bar fight.
So you leap from your chair.
Yep, somebody smashes a bottle, and now we roll for luck to see if we can avoid some of these punches that are being thrown.
Nice.
You roll well. You may remember in Tunnels and Trolls, if you roll doubles on a saving roll, you get to add and roll again.
Nice.
So that was a pretty easy one.
Very well succeeded. Okay, so we have the rolling mechanic here, like a traditional tabletop RPG. It's happening right here.
Yep.
And then we roll for dexterity.
Yep, so now we're going to try another saving roll to get through this.
And we're doing well.
Yep, you're not doing badly at all, so this bar fight you may just survive this very nicely.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that was close, but you got it.
Yeah, we got that double, too.
And so you are the last one standing. And as a result, you get some adventure points, you get some loot that you found, and when you complete one of these adventures, what happens is you get your adventure points, you get your gold. You didn't level up in this case, but if you did, we would tell you that. And now all this stuff that you got, you take into the next adventure. And I'll tell you that Seven Eyes in particular, there are many, many endings here. And so we have not seen even a sliver of what happens in this adventure. Certainly buying the milk or the beer takes you in different paths. There's a lot of different stuff that goes on here. And that's part of the fun. We've added a number of achievements to each of these adventures so that you kind of get a sense of, oh, I don't have all the key parts yet. I haven't seen all the content. And you go from there. But there you go. That's kind of the core experience, sort of like that modern choose-your-own-adventure book with a character RPG element.
And I can take a character, start out with that character, and run them through as many adventures as are on the app.
Absolutely.
And then, apparently, I've heard that you can create your own adventures.
That is coming fast. Let's show you how we do that. So what we're going to show you now is the Adventure Creator, which is, this is the actual tool that we use now to make these things. And so you've got sort of what you're looking at here is another Stackpole adventure. This one's called Stop Thief. And instead of being the criminal, this time you have been hired by the magnate of a shipping fleet to investigate who's taking all of his stuff from the docks. So you go through a process of meeting the gang and trying to infiltrate the gang and seeing what might happen from there. Basically, as you look at each of these boxes is what we call a frame, right? A frame being the assemblage of what you saw on the mobile device or on the PC here and things like that. These purple lines are paths, right? You've chosen a path, you as the writer have written, oh, you can turn left or right, or, again, thinking Seven Eyes, buy the beer, buy the wine, buy the milk, right? That kind of thing. Green and red lines, however, show conflict resolution. And so green is a success, red is a failure, and in this, green and red are if you win a combat or make a saving roll, you go down a green path. If you fail the saving roll, you lose in combat, they're red. You'll see a lot of these red lines.
Eaten by rats.
End and close the book, right? And because that's how a lot of these adventures work. Now, what we'll do is we'll look at a frame here real quick to show you kind of this is how the adventure is assembled. And in every frame, you have the ability to pick a piece of art. And so here we are in a tavern. We got a happy pirate drinking there. We have thousands of images already from the Flying Buffalo archive. So as you're making your adventure, you get a lot of art to source from. But on top of that, we've started licensing art through people on Drive-Thru-RPG who are contributing to Dungeon Masters Guild. So a lot of art here. There's a lot of art to be had to bring in that fits very well with this. Part I get more excited about really is the audio, because it really just adds a huge level of immersion, right? So for every one of the frames, you can pick a music track, you can carry the music track that came before to sort of set the mood of what's going on. So, as you did in Seven Eyes, we're here in the tavern and you hear the bard playing, right? But some of the other adventures coming up. So Arena of Kazan, AOK here, is a gladiator adventure. You stand and fight in the sands of Kazan trying to win your freedom ultimately and your fortune as a gladiator. So the theme song here for Arena of Kazan, it's more of a, triumphant brass and drums and Roman Colosseum vibe and things, and just there's all these different sorts of things for various sorts of adventures and ideas, right? And similarly, there are ambient noises that you make for each of these adventures. So right now we're in the tavern, and let's imagine if the tavern was kind of busy. You hear the fireplace, the fan, the patrons, the plates clinking, things like that. But, maybe you're in a ship on the ocean during a storm, and the waves are crashing, and things.
Nice.
Maybe you're in a room that got set on fire by a magical disaster of some kind, or, maybe you're in the jungle. So, we've got a bunch of these ambient effects that sort of explain, the music sets the mood, the ambient explains the environment you're in, and then a bunch of sound effects, right? So some of these you've heard before, right? When the Balrog appears in Naked Doom, he's still there. But in Seven Eyes, when the bar fight begins, and you get that bar bottle smashed over your head, in Buffalo Castle, we have a buffalo stampede. Maybe there won't be a lot of buffalo stampedes, but hey, it could be horses racing, it could be anything, right? And these sound effects really just do a lot more for you. So that's, you basically type in your narrative, you pick your art, you pick your audio, and then you start putting in your choices and things. Now to do that, what I'll do is I'll show you a bit of like what things looked like when we went to PAX South. I'll clean up these previous things, and we'll make our own tiny mini adventure here. Whoa, go back.
Look at,
defeat. That was not a good answer for that.
I like that adventure, fight, and then just right to defeat.
So here we are, right? Now, and we'll just start from the top here, where basically a lot of times at PAX South, we'd say to people, hey, do you want to help us create something? And everybody's like, yeah, what do you want to make? I don't know. And in a lot of those cases, we just took people to here and randomly picked something. It's like, okay, here we go. What's happening here, right? And so people would just tell us, three
you wake up,
goblins,
the goblins are staring at you.
Cornered you in your room at the inn. Whoa.
Never a good morning.
Yes. This is not how, you
must be Saturday
expected,
at GenCon, right?
Things to start today. And why don't we put you in a fight now, right? So, but before we do that, let's pick some sound and music. Okay, so we've got, all right, this is probably not good news. You're going to be in some kind of a combat, maybe something more goblin-y. There we go, something not so big, and you are in your inn, so maybe it's a there's a I think we have a couple of small rooms, large rooms. Let's see here.
Just a large dark room. That's pretty much where I want to sleep all the time.
There we go. And some sound effects, right? So let's see. Do we have our goblin sound effects in here?
You could have that door slide open sound effect.
Let's see here. Well,
there's your goblins.
Let's try this one out. or the goblin appearance.
Nice.
There we go. All right, so now we're gonna fight some goblins. Right now, this is the menu for when you're actually creating things. And so the switch frame gives you those purple paths. So pick a choice, go in a direction, choose an outcome, things like that. Fight is, picking a monster or a group of monsters and things. The saving rolls are based on level and your attribute.
Yeah.
You can give people items and take them away. You can modify their attributes for damage or buffs or debuffs and stuff. So to get this started, we'll go ahead and do the fight. And we're gonna let's do a group of 3 goblins, which matches our little illustration here. And let's pick a goblin, right? So now, here are the dozens of monsters that we've added to the archive thus far based on the Tunnels and Trolls stats they have, but maybe you wanted to create one, right? Maybe you need a boss monster or a named non-player character, right? This is how you do it. How many adventure points are they worth? What's their constitution, their dice, their adds? Do they have armor? That kind of thing. Pick the image, add in a title and a description and go. But in this case, right, we just know we want to fight some goblins, so let's go ahead and get them in there. And so now we're gonna have a fight against 3 goblins, and once again, the platform is smart enough to know that it needs to go ahead and create the 2 frames that spawn from that.
Yeah.
So here we are, right? This is our frame that we were just working on. Here's the frame for if you beat the goblins, and here's where if you lose. So what I tend to like to do every time it's a dead frame, and you probably, if you played a little Naked Doom, you probably saw this image a lot, is my favorite death skull. You may choose something different, right? And then similarly in the music, I like to put the death stinger in there. So that's the end of that. Now, at the end of a combat, the red frame that it puts for failure, we assume that you want the character to die and if they fail in combat. But it doesn't have to be that way. You could change this text. You could eliminate this choice very quickly. You could say, oh, you were captured, or maybe it was a friendly arm wrestling match and nobody died. It was just, you just carry on from there. No problem. It's really up to you as the author as to what you want to do. And then come back to the map view now and let's flesh out the victory. So great, you won the combat. Let's give you some, here we go. Let's try this one.
Earned. Yes, of course.
Let's see, it'll play if we, there it is.
I feel very, very victorious.
Yep, let's see here. All right, there we go. So that's good enough. We'll keep it. You're victorious. The goblins, whoa, lie dead before you, and you loot the bodies.
Of course you loot the bodies.
Of course you do. So similarly, like, we can give you items and we have a battery of things in here that we've created, or if you need to, you can create one, and this could be the case where you want to put a special weapon in here that you take onto an adventure.
Good.
Maybe you want to make the, you need to have the bronze key to open the silver door in the gold room kind of thing. This is where you could create those kinds of things.
Yeah.
For now, we'll keep it simple. We'll say they had some gold. They are goblins. They probably weren't that wealthy. And with that, we'll bring the adventure to a close. And this time, instead of being due to death, you have successfully completed it. We'll go back to the map view, and this little sliver of an adventure is done, and we'll preview it. So now we get to see it actually in the player itself, just minutes after we've made it. Now,
wow, this is cool.
What you're seeing, of course, is the creator is still a prototype work in progress that we're using well internally. But for example, you can see I'd like to put a spell checker in there, and before we put it out to other people, they're going to demand something like that to make this easier.
Yeah.
Similarly, when you preview, I'd like to just take you straight to the place as opposed to firing up the whole app. But these are things that are easy to fix, right?
Yeah.
And here's our adventure. You hear the music, you heard the goblins snickering, they've cornered you, you see the text. Well, here we go into our fight. And so again, we didn't really have to do anything other than just say it's 3 monsters. The game knows all their stats, it knows my stats and such, and now we fight. And here we go, a bunch of dice on the screen.
Buckets of dice.
Easy to kill these goblins because we're a pretty veteran character here. And there we go. We looted the bodies, we got our gold, we completed the adventure. Again, in a real adventure, you'd get your adventure points, you get your gold. If you leveled up, we tell you that. And there you go.
So let's get to the next phase of this, which is you have an app.
Yep.
You have, officially created content. You have user created content. But obviously, there's got to be some money somewhere in there.
Oh,
right?
absolutely, yeah.
So how are you going to make this actually a tangible product that is going to be sustainable?
Yeah. So The start point of what we have here now is this sort of dual monetization model that we call around currencies we've named hearts and gems. When you download the game for the first time on the App Store, which you do completely for free, we give you an allotment of hearts that you can play with. And a heart is like a quarter at the arcade. So it gives you one play through the adventure, win, lose, abandon, whatever.
Yeah.
Now some of these adventures, Naked Doom for example, and the tutorial for what it's worth, are completely free. You never spend a heart or anything to get into those. But after a while, as you play through the other adventures and you spend your hearts, you're going to want to get more hearts to keep playing. You can either buy them, no problem, or you can watch an ad. And so we know that a lot of people are just going to want to do that, and that's okay. So as long as you're willing to watch an ad, we put it just at the front of the adventure, you get your heart, you never interrupt the adventure with advertising, you don't have banners all over the screen, things like that. Watch an ad, get a heart, play an adventure, nothing to it.
Great.
Of course at GenCon we do hear a lot of people telling us they'd rather not deal with ads, they'd rather just purchase adventures like they do in pen and paper. That's easy to do as well. The mini solos are currently priced at $1, Buffalo Castle's a few bucks. We intend for it to be about that price range.
Yeah.
You know, something that's kind of a, snackable, disposable thing. You're not, these aren't games that last hours and hours. They're nice bite-sized pieces of content. And when you make your own adventures now and put them up on the app stores, the first thing we do, of course, is make sure you are behaving well.
Right.
That it's no hate speech, no stolen content, things like that. And assuming you pass that bar, we then deploy to the app stores for you. Google Play, Steam, ultimately the Apple App Store. And every time your adventure is played, that same model takes effect. If somebody buys it with gems, you get a big piece of that revenue. If somebody watches an ad to play it with a heart, you get a big piece of that revenue. And ultimately, we're starting on the narrative side for writers with these art and audio assets that we've got. But ultimately, we want to empower people to bring their own art in, right? And so if you upload art into the platform and other people use it, well, your name will be in the credits when somebody does, and you'll get some revenue off of the revenue created by that adventure.
Cool.
Same thing on the audio front.
So there's an entire system that is essentially being created that could, honestly, take off and be very sustainable in the long run.
That's what our hope is. And again, the idea here is that on the one hand, right, you look at platforms like Twitch and WordPress that have empowered millions of non-technical people to be creative and maybe make some money doing it and build an audience. That's part of what this idea here is, right? As people are able to, build an audience on Twitch or on WordPress, they're able to make a little money, and some people are able to make that their job, right?
Yeah.
That they professionally become a streamer or whatnot. Maybe people can one day professionally become adventure creators through this kind of a process. And maybe it isn't just through tunnels and trolls and fantasy, maybe it is through science fiction and horror and romance and war and westerns and on, right? The thinking is that by bringing that barrier down, like a lot of people, I've looked at a number of ways to create stuff. I've looked at things like RPG Maker, I've looked at Twine and things, and a lot of this stuff just ended up being a little too technically complicated on the side of RPG Maker, or maybe not robust enough on the side of Twine. And so coming up with something here where now anybody can create one with these assets, we think will liberate a whole bunch of people to create a bunch of content and dust off those adventures they wrote years ago and turn it into something that everybody can play on a mobile side. As long as you keep these models simple and you keep the barrier of creation low, why wouldn't you, right? We're not charging you to create an adventure. Why not give it a shot? A lot of times people are creating things, and even the idea that I got to go to the Unity store and buy $100 worth of assets may be enough to prevent me from ever starting, right? So this is kind of how all that stuff comes in, and it is a business around, yes, we'll continue to do things like we'll call it the curated content from the tunnels and trolls and things that are published, but at the end of the day, we believe the big picture is really around millions of people creating adventures that tens of millions of people are playing, just like tens of millions of people are reading stories on Wattpad or fanfiction.net.
Yeah.
It's really that kind of an idea.
David, I cannot wait to get started.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
So
it's great
cool.
to see you guys again.
David Reid from MetaArcade, and this is Tunnels and Trolls Adventures, so go check that out on the App Store. I'll probably see you there. Till next time, keep playing, guys.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Of course, you can find more videos just like this on our YouTube channel. Also, if you'd like to be one of the first to know anytime we're posting new content, you can subscribe on YouTube or follow us on one of our various social media accounts. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, keep playing.